we've gone through the belief template, strategies, and emotions. The last piece for us to talk about is external behavior. Now, if you remember our elicitation of Shireen's strategy, it's a lot of external behavior, isn't it? And, for me, when you're talking about a strategy, that it is going to involve external behavior, probably. And I think that's absolutely all right. I see no point in trying to confine a strategy to just internal processes, because the internal processes actually don't do anything in the world. You must have external manifestation of those processes for them to matter or for them to be meaningful in any way. So, I think it's fine to capture in strategies, as we have done, the combination of internal and external processes that together make it possible to bring to life this ability. Okay. So why bother then to have that space for external behavior there? And what that is reserved for are those external behaviors. Thank you. Yeah, I feel, why am I shouting at these people? I'm shouting at them. And what is this? One of the things that I think is a mistake in modeling is trying to get too much irrelevant external behavior. Just because people are doing things doesn't mean that they're really significant or essential, that we need to know about them. So what we want to capture in the external behavior are only those behaviors that would not naturally flow from the rest of the array. So, for instance, if you're modeling a writer's ability to create characters, or to write up dialogue, and there the writer's going to be sitting at a computer and be typing up the dialogue and making it up, and of course you'll want that strategy for how they're coming up with the dialogue. Right, that's strategy. In terms of external behavior, though, what do we want to have? Do we need to put in there sitting in front of the computer, fingers moving up and down, hitting the keys, breathing, looking at the screen? We don't need to put any of that. It's all true. It's all true, actual external behavior. However, those are all things that we're going to naturally or automatically do. So there's no need to specify them.
Could I add something there?
Okay. Here, add it to me.
Okay. No, it's just that because I've done a little bit of modeling of that sort of thing, I found that posture could be relevant.
Well, then you've anticipated me.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, you're not really sorry. It's more of like a formal thing.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, don't mention it. That was true appreciation. So what we do want to include, however, are those external behaviors that are significant, that do make a difference in being able to manifest the ability, that we wouldn't necessarily know to do automatically or do naturally. So for instance, the posture. If, as you suggested, if our exemplar, when they're creating these characters, sits with a certain posture. Now, would I know to sit like this automatically unless you told me to do it? No. I'll sit however I normally sit. So that, to me, would be a good example of external behavior that I would want to specify. So, if it's necessary for this person to, when they stick a finger in their eye while they're coming up with characters, then this is something you need to put down, because wouldn't normally do that. But one of the things, it's easy to do, because external behavior is so obvious, it gets easy to just start putting down all this external behavior. But I want you to consider, well, do we really need it? Is it something that if you didn't tell me to do it, I wouldn't do it, and it's significant? Okay. So, external behavior, we're after just those things. Now, this brings us to a point which we haven't mentioned yet so far, which is, we're doing this elicitation entirely by asking her questions about her past experiences. We haven't done any of this modeling through watching her do what she does. And now, of course, in watching somebody actually engage in whatever ability they have, that is the best opportunity to identify possible significant external behavior. So I do recommend that if you have the opportunity or can create the opportunity to actually watch somebody manifesting the ability, this is something you really want to do. It gives you a personal reference experience for what this person does, as well as the opportunity to see what they do that they themselves might not know to talk about. For instance, Graham and I, my cohort, Graham and I, modeled this woman who is very good at giving presentations. And, we found out what her external behavior was through elicitation. But then when we watched her, what we saw her do was when she would stand up at the podium, she would pause and do this. She'd go, and then start talking. Well, she was not aware that she was doing this. She was not consciously aware that she was doing this. But afterwards, when we brought this to her attention, she immediately recognized, oh yeah, I always do that. And to her it was very important because it settled her. It kind of put her in the present and separated her from all of the thoughts and concerns she had before she stepped up to that podium. So it was a very significant thing, and certainly something we included in the external behavior, because you wouldn't necessarily know to do that. So if you can have the opportunity to see somebody do what they do it. Create it as well. You're modeling somebody who says, oh, I'm good at telling jokes. Good, tell me a joke. And then have them actually do it so you can not only experience it, but witness it as well. Okay? Somebody says, oh, I'm good at remodeling. Okay, so how would you remodel this room? Like, no, don't answer that. Get a big sledgehammer and start. Yeah. We all have ideas about what we would do with this room. But have them do it. If you can have them demonstrate it, you get to witness it, and also provides a very fresh example to draw from in your modeling. Okay? All right. Okay. So now, going for the external behavior. So I'm not going to ask Shireen, well, what are you doing on the outside in your external behavior when you are helping children adapt to new culture? Because she's doing millions of things and a lot of stuff. So you want to narrow down her own attention, her own thinking. And thus, I ask, so there you are, a child has been brought into a classroom from a different culture. Of course, you want to help this child adapt. What are you doing on the outside? That is, what would I see or hear you do that is important to help them adapt that I might not otherwise know to do?
I think I would try and synchronize with the child.
So by synchronize, you mean you would match your body tempo, your movements, maybe your breathing?
Yes.
Okay. Now that's a good example to me of excellent behavior. Your movements, tempo.
Yeah, and breathing.
What else would you be doing on the outside? What else would What else would I see you do and hear you say? Could be things about your voice tonality as well.
Well, generally, I speak with a very sort of soft, gentle tonality voice.
Unlike the one you're using now?
No, like the one I'm using now. Even if the child is, so I take the example of Christine, who was angry, I think it's important not to synchronize with his anger there, and to find some way of showing him that this is sort of a calm environment and I'm part of that environment, and try and sort of bring down his anger, even if I can't bring it down completely, but just show, okay, you're angry, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Speak, how about with?
Mm-hmm.
A calm, smooth tonality, you
Mm-hmm.
call it? Yeah. Nah, smooth voice. We've got enough of those kind of words, don't we? Voice. Yeah, so speak with a calm, smooth voice.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Also, as I mentioned before, if the child is sitting down, I will sit down to be the same level as the child,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's standing up, actually, because
So
obviously I'm taller.
So,
I lower down to.
all right. So, as much as possible, do you
Yeah.
get yourself? Uh-huh. Right. You say put myself down, put myself at the same level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the idea is that I'm almost sort of eye level with the child.
Right. Now, of course, we had that is redundant to the strategy, right? We heard, she talked about that in the strategy. And of course, because we've created these somewhat arbitrary boxes around these distinctions, as we talked about before lunch, of course they're going to overlap with one another. And so we're not surprised to find references to same elements of experience in different areas of the array. Mm-hmm. Anything else? So getting down, putting yourself at the eye level of the child, speaking with a calm, smooth voice, synchronizing your body movements, tempo, and breathing with the child.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Nothing that I can think of at the moment.
Okay, there's this one I would ask
Yeah.
about, which is touching.
Uh-huh.
Is there are certain times that
Yes.
you talk about
Yeah.
touching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is touching something that I would see you do frequently, or it depends
I think
entirely on
it depends on the child. If the child's accepting that, then I sort of touch the child gently, because then it's sort of anchoring. It's calming down the child as well, because that child's probably left the hands of the mother or the father, and I'm just sort of showing, oh yeah, you're safe here. But I would do it when I observe that it's necessary to do it.
So would I put this in as external behavior? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Here it's more of a strategic thing. That is, there are certain situations in which I would touch, certain ones I don't. So it's not really something that is a characteristic behavior kind of throughout manifesting this ability. It depends entirely on the situation, and this is an ugly word for it, but it's a tactic. It's something you use in certain situations. So it's really, I think, part of the strategy. Whereas something like putting herself at their eye level, she does that whenever it's possible to do that. She makes sure she's at their level. She is, as a rule, speaking with a calm and smooth voice. She is, as a rule, trying to synchronize her tempo and so on with that of the child. You guys see the difference? And so that's why I would not put the touching in there. Yes.
Is that the same reason that you wouldn't put the gestures in there? Because I know originally she talked about gesturing and opening up herself and the room to them. That's a tactic, not an external behavior.
It's an
That's a
external
strategy.
behavior. It's not characteristic of the ability as a whole. It's something that's used in specific instances.
Okay.
And that's why I wouldn't put it in external behavior. So I'm using this box for external behavior a little differently than folks have used it in the past. In the past, they would put everything that, just like those things, anything the person does in external behavior, they'd put it in there. For me, I think it then just ends up being this huge box full of behaviors, and I don't know what to do with them. By including those kinds of behaviors in with the strategy, then they're in their relevant places. This is when you do this. When this happens, I do this.
Okay.
So that makes those behaviors relevant. What I'm looking for here in these external behaviors are, first of all, significant ones, but secondly, those behaviors that are just, I'm going to be using no matter what tactic I'm involved in, no matter where I am in the strategy, I'm going to be doing those kinds of things. So whether I'm touching this child or not touching them, I'm going to be synchronizing myself with that child. I'm going to, if at all possible, be on the same level as that child. I'm going to be modulating my voice tonality, almost regardless of where I am in the strategy.
So
Okay.
that's sort of the indicator. Regardless of the strategy, it's a common thread.
Yeah, and that's what I'm suggesting we reserve this external behavior box for, those things. Otherwise, it just becomes a huge list of behaviors that, so what? So do all these things. When? Why? Okay? And that's it about external, that's it for external behavior. Done. All right. So the one other piece I want to mention, if you look on your little handouts, you'll see outside the array, there's this thing that says contributing factors. Contributing factors. That's your freebie, so you can stick anything in there, because it's outside the array. What the conception or the idea of contributing factors are, those things that your exemplar does or creates, or things that are important in the situation that help this person manifest the ability. They're not necessary. In other words, if you didn't do those things, or if you didn't have those things, you could still manifest the ability. But if you do have them, they help support it. We have, I think, an example here, which is, and I wrote it on, that's why I wrote it on the page here, when you talked about your room being colorful.
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember that? Yeah. And so she's got color, it's colorful,
Mm-hmm.
it's a contributing factor. I would put this as a contributing factor, because I can well imagine how that could help me with engaging the children. Remember, she's always going, well, what are they interested in? She's trying to get them interested in things and then connect them with those things and so on. So that means a room that's filled with interesting things is going to likely help me in this, manifest this. So one contributing factor that I pulled out was that the room is colorful. And the other thing that I remember writing down that jumped out at me was that when they came in, they already had their name at their place on their table. So their name card, their place was named. And again, as always, I'm trying this through my own experience, in this case as the child and as the teacher. You know, I don't think these things are necessary to manifest the ability. You could do it in a warehouse. You could do it, you know, in a closet. However, I can well imagine that having a colorful room would make it easier to manifest this ability, and that having the child's name in place already is helpful and have a good effect. And so, you know, something I would personally include under a contributing factor. Okay? Any questions about any of that? All right. So, now you get to do it. And I'll get to run around and help you individually. Michael?
David, I have one question in terms of signal emotions.
Yeah.
What kind of questions do you like to ask there?
Well, if you look, let's look at the elicitation sheet. And anticipating your question, Michael, it says, note them as they arise. So you don't elicit them.
Okay.
You note them. So in other words, as people are describing their experience, they'll say, and then I got really frustrated about this, but then I was really excited, and then I was really happy. That's what will happen. People will talk about their signal emotions because that's what's in their consciousness. That's what's in their awareness. Now, do you need to note them? You can note them. And it's okay with me. I suggest it's fine to note them down. When you're actually then thinking about the model and what's important to have in the model, that's the time for you to think about, well, is that really significant? Are these signal emotions significant? Do I need to be told that when things aren't working well, I feel frustrated? Probably not. See, that's the thing about most signal emotions are the natural emotions that most all of us would automatically have in those same situations. And that's why in modeling, you almost never need to identify them, because you'll just have them automatically. Nobody needs to be told that when you keep trying something that's not working to feel frustrated, you know. And then when it finally works out, to feel pleased or elated, you don't need to be told that. Your body's going to do that for you. So, in general, you don't need them. And there may be exceptions to that, which we can talk about later, but in general, you don't need them. If you're doing therapy, and you can use the same model to work with somebody as a problem, modeling their problem, then signal emotions often become very useful and important, because signal emotions are often indicators of something really going awry, going wrong in this person's experience, that either they're not paying attention to, or they're paying attention to and responding to in a very unuseful way. And so these signal emotions, it can be very useful to identify them explicitly, because they become the flags, the red flags, for significant changes in this person's experience. But we'll have to talk about therapy another day, another time. But so, just note them if they arise. Yeah?
What would you consider as signal emotion?
She talked about very few that I recall. I don't recall her. I don't actually recall any. I don't pay attention to them at all, unless they jump out. Unless, when I say jump out, when they come with a lot of energy behind them, when there's a lot of juice. I pay attention. Anytime there's juice, then David's right there. Sustaining emotion? Just because there's... No. Signal emotions, when somebody says, then I get really frustrated. If you talk to me about, if you ever watch me do a crossword puzzle, as some people have, what you will see is a parade of signal emotions. That's right. Oh my God, wow, I got that. What the fuck is he talking about? I don't, Yeah, it comes and goes, it comes and goes and comes and goes. That feeling challenged, there's not a lot of juice. Instead of juice, it's got constancy and depth. Okay? So on the sheets, you'll notice that there are two questions, two elicitation questions. Use them, but use only one of them. The reason there are two questions is that each of these questions goes after the same kind of information, but from a little bit different direction. So if you ask one question and the person is having difficulty responding, then you simply try the other question, and usually one of the other questions will work. All right? And if neither one works, you're on your own. All right. So now, without further ado, because you've been sitting here way too long listening to me.
Excuse me, may I ask one more question?
Okay, that's one. Next, Paul.
On primary and secondary strategies.
Yes.
Okay, if we're getting primary strategies and everything seems to be going okay,
Uh-huh.
do we need to elicit secondary strategies?
Yeah. What do you mean if things seem to be going okay?
In other words, the primary strategies seem to be effective in manifesting the ability.
Oh, yes, it will be, except that there will be times in the real world where it won't work.
Okay,
In the real world, that will always be the case.
okay.
So then you want to find out in those times, even if it's a rare time, but in those times when what you normally do doesn't work, what do you do then? Okay? And it's to me, I think this is extremely important because what oftentimes people do in modeling is they only model just the perfect thing that works, that's supposed to work all the time. But that makes you brittle. It gives you no depth and flexibility in the ability. Because what happens is people will use it and things are going great, and the first time something goes wrong and it's not working well, it all falls apart. People go, oh, I can't do this, or the model's no good, or they'll find some reason why it's no good. And again, as we said before, one of the things that makes somebody an exemplar is when things go wrong, they have another way to go and keep moving towards satisfying and fulfilling their criterion. Okay? All right, so you have partners. Yesterday, one way you got the belief template. What I'd like you to do is to rejoin your partner, just review the belief template, just to make sure that you're back together where you were when you left off. And then just as we did with Shireen here today, I want you to finish the array, get the strategy, the emotion, and the external behavior. And I'll be around to help you. And what I'd like to do is I'll keep track of how people are going. At some point, I'm going to stop you. I'd like you to finish this in an hour. I'll stop you. We'll take a break. After that, I'm going to bring you back, and I want to answer questions that you have about the process or about what you found from each other. Isn't that great? Yeah. And then you will get back with your partners and switch around the other way, so you'll have an opportunity to be on the other side of this. Okay? All right. So it's now 2:15. I'd like you to pace yourselves to be done with the array with your partner by 2:45. Okay? Okay.